Today we're talking about a king whose wealth was so massive, so completely off the charts that he could actually crash entire economies just by being generous. This is the story of a man who literally put his empire on the map with gold, faith, and a legacy that is, well, still absolutely incredible today.
So let me ask you a question. When you think of the richest person who has ever lived, who comes to mind? Is it a tech billionaire from today? Maybe some Gilded Age industrialist? An oil tycoon?
Well, whatever name just popped into your head, it's probably not the right one. The person who holds that title had a fortune so vast, so enormous, that it's almost impossible for us to even calculate it today.
His name was Mansa Musa, and he was an African emperor whose story is, without a doubt, one of the most amazing in all of history.
All right, let's get right into it. Mansa Musa was the ruler of the Mali Empire in West Africa way back in the 14th century. And you've got to understand, while Europe was slugging through the Middle Ages, the Mali Empire was stepping into its golden age.
So the big question is, how did one person get so ridiculously wealthy? I mean, we're talking about a level of wealth that's hard to even imagine. The answer is kind of this perfect storm of a great location, some really smart leadership, and two resources that couldn't be more different but were equally valuable.
See, the entire economy of Mali was built on two things. First, gold. I mean, obviously, right? It's the universal symbol of riches and power. But the other pillar, and this is just as important, was salt. Yeah, salt. In the middle of the Sahara Desert, salt wasn't just a seasoning, it was literally a lifeline. You needed it to preserve your food, you needed it for your health, it was essential for survival.
And this is where the genius of the Mali Empire really kicks in. They didn't just have huge gold mines. No, they controlled the entire trade network, the superhighways of the desert where gold and salt were exchanged. And Mansa Musa was a sharp ruler. He taxed every single caravan that crossed through his lands, creating this non-stop river of cash flowing directly into his treasury.
Now, being rich is one thing, but making sure the entire world knows you're rich, that's another level. In 1324, Mansa Musa, a devout Muslim, decided to make his pilgrimage, his Hajj, to Mecca. But this was so much more than a religious journey. This was basically the biggest, most extravagant publicity tour in history.
Just try to get this picture in your head. A caravan stretching for miles, like a moving city cutting across the Sahara. We're talking thousands of soldiers, servants, officials, and the camels weren't just carrying supplies. Oh no, they were loaded down with gold. An insane amount of pure gold.
So what happens when this mobile mountain of gold arrives in a major city like Cairo? Mansa Musa's generosity became legendary. He just started giving gold away to the poor, in the markets, everywhere. He handed out so much of it that he completely flooded the city's economy. The result? He single-handedly tanked the value of gold and crashed the market in one of the world's most important financial centers.
Let that sink in. It took Cairo's economy more than a decade to recover from one man's visit. This wasn't just some accident, it was a powerful message. It was Mansa Musa announcing that the Mali Empire had arrived on the world stage and everyone needed to pay attention.
But here's the thing, Mansa Musa's story is about so much more than just his wealth. Sure, that incredible trip got the world's attention, but his true vision was always focused on what he could build back home. When he returned from his pilgrimage, he brought back knowledge, scholars, and a serious plan to invest his fortune into a legacy that would last way longer than he would.
And at the very heart of that plan was the city of Timbuktu. It had been a pretty remote trading post, kind of out in the middle of nowhere. But Mansa Musa was about to transform it into a world-renowned hub for scholarship, culture, and learning. And this wasn't just about throwing money around and building fancy palaces. He strategically invested in these incredible mosques, massive libraries, and universities that became famous around the world. He brought in the best and brightest minds he could find, architects from Spain, scholars from across the Islamic world, and turned Timbuktu into this shining beacon of intellectual life. It's really easy to get dazzled by the stories about all the gold, right? But the true legacy of Mansa Musa isn't about how much money he had. It's about what he did with it.
For him, that immense wealth was just a tool. It was a means to an end. He used it to champion education, to enrich the culture of his people, to help spread the influence of Islam in West Africa, and to plant his kingdom's flag firmly on the world map. The gold was fleeting, but the legacy he built, that was designed to last.
In the end, Mansa Musa's reign was a total game changer.
It demonstrated to a world that often looked the other way that the continent of Africa was home to incredibly powerful, wealthy, and culturally rich civilizations that could go toe-to-toe with any other empire on the planet.
So it all leaves us with a pretty big question. We started by asking who the richest person in history was, but Mansa Musa's story kind of forces us to think about that differently. Is wealth really just about what you accumulate for yourself, or is it about what you create for others? What really is the true measure of wealth?